because the headline there is Rice, Rice, baby. And Charlie, this is your report. This was at the Vitality yesterday. You were at the game. Huge win for Arsenal. 6 points clear of Aston Villa, 7 clear of City ahead of their game today. This time last month, they lost to Aston Villa and a few people were questioning them. But they've come through and they've shown a lot of character. You can't underestimate what happened yesterday, can you?
No, they're finding a way to win, even though they're not necessarily still playing at their best all the time. Gabriel had a moment of madness and then scored at the other end. But Declan Rice, he was the story. I think he is the story for Arsenal at the moment. He's the heartbeat of the team, scored twice for the first time in the Premier League in his career, which I think tells you everything you need to know, really, that he's a brilliant player, but he needs to score more goals because he's played nearly 300 Premier League matches. And that's an area, I think, at the start of the season he spoke to Arteta about, or Arteta spoke to him about. And I think also for England, he's got, I think, 6 goals. So he's good enough to score more. He has to score more because the bloke they signed in the summer to sort of fire the goals to get them to the title has only scored 5 goals, Victor Gyökeres, and he looks totally lost. I mean, at the moment, it's remarkable. You think where Arsenal are 6 points clear at the top, and their top scorers are 5 goals in the Premier League, and that's Trossard and Gyökeres. And normally, teams that win the Premier League, you have at least one player that scores 20 goals. So it could be a first team to win the Premier League and not have a player gets more than 15 goals. But Arsenal do have the best squad in the league, I think, which is why they're sort of getting through and getting the results they need.
Charlie, we'll come to Declan Rice in more detail in just a moment, but Alison Rudd's piece in the Sunday Times, she was at the Vitality Stadium as well, and it kind of illustrates the difference between last season and this season for Arsenal. She says this was the sort of game during which Arsenal came unstuck in the previous 3 seasons, allowing nerves or conservatism to creep in for a lack of self-belief to permeate the team. But in spite of Bournemouth's effervescence, Arsenal's body language never stopped conveying a sense of innate superiority and that they relished the challenge on the South Coast on a bitterly cold evening. They also, if you go back to the corresponding fixture last season, had William Saliba sent off. It was their first defeat of the season. It felt like a bit of a turning point. It was their 3rd red card of the season. They had 6 in all in the Premier League season last season. None so far this time. I spoke to Mikel Arteta on Friday specifically about this discipline, and he has said that they've had to learn lessons from what happened last season. And what are we, into 2026, and no red cards? The discipline's improved, hasn't it?
Yeah, hugely. And actually, you look at the last 4 games, they've won their last 4. I mean, they've won their last 5, but of the last 4, they dropped points in all of those corresponding fixtures last season. Yeah, the red card thing's interesting because the season they first got good and went for the title, 22-23, their discipline completely flipped that season, and it was very good, having been really, you think the season before they had a lot of red cards, the kind of height of Xhaka, mad red mist and that sort of thing. Then they really settled down. Then, yeah, last season, they got 1 and it kind of then this big persecution complex built, and I think he had to get rid of that and be like, look, we've had a few contentious ones. We remember Rice himself had that one against Brighton for kicking the ball away when that was all the rage before they decided, nah, it's fine. But yeah, they've massively improved that, and you look at the best teams. I mean, Arsenal under Wenger are the exception. They got a lot of red cards and somehow coped, but mostly, Guardiola's City, they don't get many because they're rarely putting themselves in position where they're out of control and they're chasing things. You don't see Rodri very often flying into tackles. That's not his game. And someone like Zubimendi has come in. He got booked yesterday, but he exudes that, I think. Like, Rice has been brilliant this season. Zubimendi, possibly the signing of the season anywhere in the Premier League. I mean, he is so good. And yesterday, he won the ball back, something like he was in double figures, something like that. And he, I think, has been so key to why Rice has been so good this season as well. And it was very Steven Gerrard-like, but not just the celebration. Those 2 finishes were really Gerrard-esque, I thought.
We always talk about these previous seasons, Johnny, about when Arsenal have been so close and rival fans have mocked them, second again. It does feel very, very different this time, though, doesn't it? And maybe we've even said that before.
I think it does. I think it does feel different. I still have them as my favourites for the title. As good as City are, as much as they've kind of turned themselves around from the start of 2025. I just think if you look at, I mean, we talk about the lack of goals, coming from Gyökeres. But I think it can be a strength as well. If you think that Jesus has hardly played a part, Havertz hasn't played a part, someone like Ethan Nwaneri has barely featured. There are potential. There is so much potential for players to come off the bench. Madueke comes in.
Eze hasn't got off the bench 4 games.
Eze hasn't got off the bench. Madueke comes in last night, and I thought he was really good. Like he was, he was a potential game changer, and it allowed them to leave Saka on the bench. I think that the ability to rotate and not have that drop off in quality is I think a real key for them, because we talked about maybe the lack of depth in that squad in previous seasons, and whereas City are maybe incredibly reliant on Haaland, they're incredibly reliant on maybe 4 or 5 key players. I don't see that with Arsenal. Rice drops out of the side and they beat Villa 4-1. So that collective strength, I think that's the sort of quality that wins titles.
Charlie Wyatt, Johnny mentioned Declan Rice there when he missed out against Aston Villa and Arsenal managed to cope. Sam Dean in the Sunday Telegraph is effectively pushing maybe for Rice to be player of the season. Force of nature, Rice furthers his case for player of season honour. The best goal scorer in the Premier League is Erling Haaland, but is there a more complete footballing force in the division than Declan Rice, he says. The Arsenal midfielder continues to reach higher levels this season and is fast becoming the leading candidate to win the Player of the Year award. Yes, they did cope without him at Aston Villa, but do you feel he's the one player that they can't do without on a sustained period of time?
Yeah, no, I agree with Sam there. I'd have him as favourite to win Player of the Year. And, the Villa match, let's not forget, the first half, they could have been 3-0 down. Arsenal were incredibly open. They didn't play that well. They were actually quite open for periods in the first half yesterday as well. But, Rice is so important for Arsenal. He's so important for England as well. If England are going to do anything at the World Cup, they have to have Declan Rice playing at his best. And at the moment, he's just so impressive. But equally, Arteta has to make sure that he rests players at the right time. It was interesting last night, there was, Saka and Trossard on the bench, because Arteta does overplay players, whatever he says, and he denies that, he really does. And there's been a few times even this season. Maybe we're thinking, is Jurrien Timber going to get injured, and because he keeps playing all the time, and so that is still a concern. But regarding the discipline, an interesting thing is not only have they improved, but also there's been a few times where Arteta's taken players off on yellow cards, which he wasn't doing last season. So even things like that, he is learning. And one interesting, I like covering games at Bournemouth because you're really close to the action, like Newcastle. And again, there's a period where I was watching Arteta, and Bournemouth had a goal kick, and he was screaming at sort of Gabriel to move about 1 metre to the left and half a metre back, and the goal kick landed on that very spot. Arteta knew exactly. Shows you what he's been doing at night, literally just watching Bournemouth goal kicks, because Gabriel didn't know that. And I just think that just shows the levels we're talking about. Arteta just looked at the keeper, saw, I know where that ball's going to land, and he was right. So it just shows. I thought that was quite remarkable.
Yeah, Arsenal then 6 points clear at the top.
7 points clear of Manchester City at the top of the table. City, of course, playing tomorrow. Paul, you said it earlier, it wasn't a vintage performance from Arsenal, but they still managed to take all 3 points and score 3 goals in the process.
Yeah, and it's just their substitutions as well. They seem to just grind teams down. Like I thought they grinded Villa down last week, and I think today they did. I mean, when you watch first half, Declan Rice, every time he got it, someone was on him. Had his head down, whoever the midfield were. But when you look at his goals, there's no one anywhere near him. Do you know what I mean? And they dictated the game. Second half, they had more composure. And I couldn't feel... The Bournemouth players didn't get near the midfield three in the second half. First half, I thought they were all over him like a rash. But second half, their squad's so strong. It's so strong. The 3 substitutions come on, remind me of the old, back in Sir Alex Ferguson's Man United teams. Do you know what I mean? When they bring on
Trossard, Saka, Jesus, big players
I played in a Villa game.
And that was a problem from last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they brought on Van Nistelrooy, Scholes, and I think Giggs. I mean, you're like, oh,
what do you do when that happens?
Yeah, do you know what I mean?
Make it fair.
So yeah, he's got to get it right though. I didn't think first half. I thought it was probably a game for Saka to start. for me, I thought this was a game Saka starts in. Difficult away ground to go to, but they come out with flying colours again. Wasn't vintage, but what can you say? 3 points, 6 points clear at the top, and they can sit home and watch on Sky tomorrow Man City against Chelsea.
It's that much repeated quote from Mikel Arteta about finishers and starters. He doesn't see players as, you know, kind of first choice, you know, 11 players. It's the ones who start the game. But then he does bring on that energy to do exactly what Paul said, which is just grind teams down with the consistency.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, they're bringing on Marino as well towards the end of the game. And he's not looking around to bring on Eze or, you know, Miles Lewis-Skelly to go win the game maybe 4-2, 5-2. He's thinking, I want to keep hold of what I've got. That's the sort of manager he is. I don't think it's going to be really that expansive. But like Paul says, they scored 3 goals today. It wasn't an easy game because of what Bournemouth, they make it very uncomfortable. And I think that's really where they get their first goal from, because Bournemouth are really good. They set them traps for them. They never made them feel comfortable. But then once second half come, they started to feel a bit more relaxed and obviously important goals at the right moment. And it was a really big result for them. Make no mistake, and it sets up the Liverpool game on
sort
prepared.
Of a mic drop and then leaves the room. That's what was key for me.
We know they've got a short list of players, Manchester United, in various different positions. There it is. I mean, Carlos Baleba is someone who has been on that short list for a while. We know that central midfield has been an area that they've been targeting. The general consensus, though, is that he will not move in January to Manchester United. Just why is that the general consensus then? Could that change?
Well, you're dealing with Brighton and Hove Albion, who are very good in the market. They're very savvy. They're sort of 2 and 3 years ahead. They're always looking ahead. There's always talk that they know who their next head coach is. They're that forward thinking. But their stance is they're looking forward to getting him back from AFCON. No call from any club and no desire to sell him in this window. I mean, that is a buffet of quality players, isn't it? I'm not being funny. That's not a January list, is it? I mean, we could go along that list and talk about how good these players are and why they won't be leaving in January. It's a dream scenario to get any one of these players for Manchester United in January.
OK, so if Baleba's going to be hard to do in January, as I said there, central midfield, a lot of people think that is the top priority for Manchester United. What other names could they go for? I mean, there's one in particular that's just there.
Anderson is the one that seems to be, you feel potentially could be pried away. He's had a recent move from Newcastle to Forest, and you kind of think maybe with the right funds in place that could be done. But I don't think anybody at this stage in the season is going to want to release their best players, especially if they're in the hunt for staying in the league, pushing on. And if United don't have the funds, which supposedly they don't, to go and actually throw a lot at it. Listen, before United would attract you, regardless of the funds they had, if you're going to Manchester United, you were going there because you wanted to play for Manchester United. It was an opportunity to go play for one of the biggest clubs, to get guaranteed Champions League football, probably win something. That's not the case anymore. So other teams will offer something slightly more than what United can offer you. So would Anderson being in a position where he goes, well, that's the one for me. If I have other options potentially in the summer, that might be better for me going forward as my career.
Do you think Wharton would be thinking similarly? I mean, with Crystal Palace, they have shown already that they will sell their best players if the right offer comes in.
Yeah, no, Palace have got rid of Eze and they've got rid of Elise in the last couple of seasons, and you just didn't think they could recover from those sales, but they somehow just keep churning around. Dropped off recently. Wharton's another one that you feel he's very much entrenched in how they play. Gay's the other one if he was to go, but you kind of feel like Palace, they can't be in a position where they're guaranteed to lose Gay in the summer and Wharton let him go now. Like, that's almost too much in the position that it's starting to drop off league-wise in the form. Glasner, again, he's a manager. Is he going to still be there? I just think you're absolutely shooting yourself in the foot if you let him go at this stage in the season.
If you were Manchester United and you could get one of those three, say all for the same price,
Wharton's,
you take Wharton over Anderson and Baleba?
Yeah.
Why?
I can see Wharton playing for Real Madrid.
Yeah, I just think, his all-round game, I just think there's something about him. He's got confidence. I hate labelling players that are like other players, but he has a Declan Rice-ish kind of, the way he moves, the way he passes the ball, his vision. He's strong on the tackle. I just think he could play in that midfield and be comfortable and allow those forward players as well to do it. So for me, Wharton would be the one I'd be bringing in.
I mean, you look at the league table and United are in a decent-ish position. I mean, no European football for Manchester United Football Club is absolutely unheard of, but they've had a bit of a reset. You kept hearing last season about Tottenham finishing 17th. Well, United finished quite close to Spurs, and it was whoever won that trophy would have a good season. United are out of Europe for one season, but they need to get back in it, ideally the Champions League. Of course, players are injured. They're away at AFCON, but
so it's not a big opportunity for them. When you look, it could be top 5 again for the Champions League. And there are teams that are stuttering, trying to get into that top 5. You know, Liverpool not playing that well. They're 4th. Chelsea just above Manchester United.